Many thanks for staying with us. It's still Politics HQ on News Central Television. All right, now let's get into the crux of today's conversation. Constitutional review as a clamor for more states, local government areas, women's seats, others, top agenda. I mean, there are calls, and of course, we know that these calls are pretty much pivotal. But let me bring in my guest to dig deep into this. I have Abbas Idiong. He joins virtually. I also have Professor Ernest Ojukwu. He is a former Deputy Director General of Nigerian Law School, while Abbas Idiong is a Public Affairs Analyst. Gentlemen, thank you for your time.
Happy to be here. Thank you.
All right. Now, let me start by asking you. Now, I mean, we know that, you know, a coalition of statesmen, political leaders, civil society advocates in the country, you know, have called for a new constitution that reflects the country's, you know, diversity, pluralism, deep-rooted issues such as governance, equality, and also national unity, a combination of several issues and factors here. I'm coming to you, sir, Professor Ernest. What's your take as regards this? This is not the first time, you know, we are seeing calls like this.
Well, the Constitution has some gaps that will need to be filled, but I don't think we'll get any better Constitution than we have, other than review a bit of what we have. There's no way we can replace this and still expect a miracle to happen. The Constitution does not work by itself. So I don't support a total abandonment of the present Constitution for a new one. That's just a waste of time.
You don't support total abandonment of the present Constitution for a new one. For you, you consider it a waste of time. But for some Nigerians, they see the current Constitution as an offshoot of the military era.
Sure, that is correct. It's an offshoot of military era. That is correct. The allegation that it was written by a few persons chosen by the military leader, that is correct. But the Constitution, remember, we have had a history of constitutional writing before even the colonial masters handed over the country back to us. So we have had so many constitutional conferences and written so many constitutions. And so if you look at the present Constitution, it's not terribly distant from the Constitution we had in 1979. And even though we had parliamentary constitutions before the Nigerian Civil War, most of the provisions of those constitutions at that time are also reflected in the present Constitution. We also had the Abuja Constitution, which unfortunately didn't see light of the day because of the passage of Abuja. So if you look at the Constitution, there has been a historical movement from pre-colonial times to now, reflecting almost all the things we have yearned for and asked for. There are a few distortions that are in the present Constitution, but that doesn't mean that we should abandon it and go for a whole new one. The history of the making is true, military Constitution, but we have spent 20-something years now running this Constitution. So, and we have adapted to it. For us to now say, how do we make it work? And that's where I prefer our discussion should focus.
Sorry, Professor, you're saying that the conversation should rather revolve around how to make the current Constitution work as against a total overhaul.
Yeah, sure, correct.
Okay, all right, I'll come back to you, sir. Let me bring in Abbas Idiong, who is a public affairs analyst, into this conversation. Your thoughts on the Constitution Summit that is, you know, ongoing, and the calls by some Nigerians saying that, look, it's about time we do a review of the current Constitution that reflects, you know, the true identity of us as Nigerians. What's your take?
Well, Dapo, can you put new wine in an old skin and expect it to make sense? I quite understand Prof's perspective when it comes to constitutional amendments and the fact that we have come through 20 plus years of democracy and we've amended the Constitution to an extent where we think that we may be making progress as a nation. But listen, this is the crux of the issue. Apart from the legitimacy question, of course, we cannot wish away the fact that the Constitution was bequeathed to us as a country by the military. In fact, it was an appendage to a decree that was signed and imposed on the country as a whole. But the political actors have taken up so much bandwidth under this Constitution. They have leveraged their positions to a point where they are not ready to cede power. And there lies the fundamental problem. And that's why we are unable to pass key reforms that could accelerate the development of this country because of the political elite. So you've got a National Assembly who probably realizes that Nigeria can't afford a bicameral legislature, 2 houses. And they are not likely to ever pass any reform or any amendment that will scrap one of those houses. So there really lies the problem. So as much as I would not, I would like to pretend that we can keep amending this Constitution until we get to the desired state of affairs in this country. Unfortunately, I don't think that's the case, because there are fundamental issues, there are fundamental flaws in this Constitution that need to be done away, especially the scope of power of the political elite.
All right, thank you so much for that. We'll definitely dig deeper into other aspects of this conversation. If at all, with what is going on right now, what areas need urgent amendment, attention, or maybe total scrapping? This and more is what we would consider when we return. To stay with us, we'll be right back. Many thanks for staying with us. It's still Politics HQ on News Central Television. I still have my guests with me, Abbas Idiong and also Professor Ernest. Gentlemen, thank you for staying with me. Now, let me come to you, Professor. Let's look at the, what I call it, recommendations for amendment itself. From our style of governance, where there are certain groups saying that, look, the presidential system might not be the best fit for Nigerians. Instead, we should have something that, is more grassrooted and reflects our identity, our culture, our diversity at the same time. Some have even said that, our current style of administration is pretty expensive. There's also calls around the judiciary, amendment, and then how elections are conducted. Just quickly, Professor, what areas, since you said you would not totally recommend, outright scrapping, what areas do you think need core attention?
There are only 2 areas for me. The rest, there are many going on now. There are many areas that they have already done bills on, which is good. I have actually been part of some of those processes, including touching how our judiciary functions, how the judiciary is controlled, receding some resources to the states and giving them more responsibilities. Those are all ongoing areas, but they're not that fundamental. My fundamental areas are 2 only. 1, make anybody that violates human rights, make it a crime, a high crime in the Constitution. And 2, anybody that does anything to thwart enforcement of judgment of courts, make it a high crime. Those are the only 2 areas that are fundamental to me. There are other areas that will help the nation, but even if they're not done, it will not alter too many things in the country. But I say this, for example, derivation, give states more money, also give them more responsibilities.
Okay.
The small responsibilities they have now, what have they done with it? The small responsibilities they have, what have they achieved? So, and there are quite a number of areas I can give you a list of what the states can do, but they're not doing it.
All right. I mean, just to be more specific, you said certain, will I call it, infractions of the law. You are recommended that it should be made high crime. Some Nigerians are pushing that, for instance, corruption by public office holders should attract the death penalty. I'm putting it to you directly. Do you think that that should be considered?
No. It should not. In fact, the world is walking away from death penalties.
But it's happening in Asia, in parts of Asia. We see it, in China, for instance.
The higher the punishment, the less enforcement. People tend to shy away from enforcing laws where the punishment is very stiff. So the higher the punishment, the less. When you go to the Scandinavian countries, the punishment there is very liberal: 3 years, 2 years, 6 months, and so on and so forth. But we don't have high crimes there. So the higher the crime, the less sanction, because people will walk away. People will find a reason not to arrest, not to prosecute, and also not to win their cases, and so on and so forth. It happens, and we have done this trial in the universities, where in one university, at Abbas Idiong, when I was the dean of faculty of law, the expulsion was the punishment for exam malpractices, and you find committees finding reasons to exonerate people. And people also find a reason not to report people because it was going to be expulsion.
Okay.
When we reduced the punishment to suspension, there were a deluge of cases, and cases were published and people were suspended. And that due exam malpractice in the university.
This is an interesting perspective. I'm going to pick from what you said to direct my question to Abbas Idiong. The former president of Nigeria, Olusegun Obasanjo, agreed for the need, for instance, for constitutional reforms, but emphasized that the real problem lies with the operators of the Constitution, not the document itself. In other words, enforcement of the law. You have said that the higher the crime, people find a way to sort of not, carry it out, to take the back door, so to speak. And that brings to the issue of enforcement of our laws. I bring it to you, Abbas. Do you think that, lower punishment should be given for crimes such that it's easy to, enforce than maybe capital punishment, which some Nigerians are saying, maybe for public office holders, they should face the gallows as we see in other some countries?
Well, Dapo, we're practicing a bit of both at the moment, and we can see the results. We don't need a soothsayer to tell us what's going on. We have capital punishment for kidnapping, and I dare say kidnapping is on the rise, In terms of capital punishment for public office holders, I believe we need to strengthen the institutions, the law enforcement institutions, to the level where there is consequences, and there's a highest level of accountability, around public office holders. But we live in a unique environment where, the elite have their way. I think I've read it somewhere where it said that the laws are too powerful for the weak and too weak for the powerful. But on the whole, back to the restructuring of the Constitution issue. I know Prof has said that he would like to see some improvements as regards enforcement or obedience of court orders. Personally, I think that there's been too much power concentrated in the center. And I think a fundamental restructuring or a new constitution would enhance the ability of the component federating units to be more, to play a stronger role in the federation. And that's what needs to happen.
All right, gentlemen, I'd like to say a big thank you for your time on the program. It's been a privilege speaking with you. Many thanks to you, Professor Ernest Ojukwu, Senior Advocate of Nigeria and former Deputy Director General of the Nigerian Law School, and also Abbas Idiong, a Public Affairs Analyst. Once again, gentlemen, thank you for your time.